Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land. Magical, magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical, magical land.
Today's guest is a fellow triathlete, and we met way back when we both lived in Moscow, Russia, to do a triathlon race together. He makes business process management easy and accessible for businesses. He's the host of the podcast, The Digital Mittelstand. Please welcome to the show, Jens Adiguzel. Welcome to the show. Hello, Jens. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Jens, how about you?
I'm good as well. Thank you. It's great to have you here. Before we go into all the business topics and really learn about innovation, learn about what is Mittelstand, and learn about your podcast, of course, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What is your story?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Jens. It's a pleasure to be here and in your podcast. And hi to everyone. This is Can, and I am from Turkey. I studied mechanical engineering and worked like 5 years in project management in the construction area. Then I received an offer from Russia where I have met Jens. Yes. And this is another story. I think I will tell this as well because it's full of coincidence, and I believe the life is full of coincidences where you can take advantage of, like we are doing right now with Jens. But still, as a technical project manager, I was working in Russia where I met a digitalization project. So I was the technical advisor of this project, but I liked so much of the topic in digitalization. I see that how I can digitalize my daily business and how it helps to see the customer satisfaction is rising. And I said, okay, this is something that really I have it here. I just want to push on that topic. So I took on that. I built that project. I was evangelizing this project through the group companies, and finally I was even reaching out to other people preaching about the tool that we have created. But then I decided to move to Germany, and as an engineer you really feel like you have some basic business knowledge. So I thought making an MBA might make sense. And I especially choose Germany because I was quite a lot of times tourist here and I like the country, but especially I like Berlin, which is not Germany, but we can talk about this later on as well. But I said, hey, I'm gonna live in this city. But the MBA I did in Leipzig just because it was an entrepreneurial school. This is HHL Graduate School of Management, and greetings to all alumni if any one of them listening to us right now. And they have the entrepreneurial spirit. We even had lessons for entrepreneurship. And is this the question right now? Can we learn it? Yes, we definitely can, because I'm coming from a family where both of my parents worked for one. My mother is a teacher, my father worked for a government bank, so they were whole employees throughout their lives, and they, without any bad intention, but they put that, how to say, spirit in ourselves. You have to be an employer, you have to get employee, you have to get your salary, and that's a regular stable life. And that's what I grown up with. So I'm coming from the least entrepreneurial family, but the best family in the world for me, definitely. And I thought, no, I want to change this. I am already moving different direction in my career. I am already moving to another country. I am already moving to another culture. Why not to change it and make it even more challenging to do it in an entrepreneurial school. So I am 4.5 years later, I am so glad that I made this decision. But flashback, I decided to learn German as well. And yes, during my MBA, I had a mandatory internship, which I did in one of the biggest retailers of Germany. And that made me understood that I am not a corporate person at all. So coming back to entrepreneurship, so something in my life were pushing me towards that direction. And eventually, when I'm done with my studies, I moved to Berlin and said, hey, I will do freelancing. And I started freelancing for business development for small and medium enterprises, and also working in digitalization projects. And for the last 2 years, I'm representing a low-code business process management tool from Turkey. They are expanding globally. So flash forward 2021, I'm here. I learned Russian, I learned German. Right now, I'm about to establish my own company as well. So those are the main points.
Before we dive into entrepreneurship even more, can you explain what is business process management for those who have never heard about it?
Yes, definitely. Business process management is, in very straightforward terms, who is doing what, when, and the most importantly, in which order. So let's take cooking, for example. You need to have the grocery shopping. So someone needs to do the grocery shopping, and someone will make the preparations. And then if you are the cook, for example, you will take the responsibility and cook the whole dish. But you cannot do it in the way that you want, but there is a certain order to be followed, even for cooking. So first the olive oil, then comes the onions, and then maybe the tomato sauce, and then chickpeas are going in, some water, then the dish is ready. So all that was a process. And in business life, we have tens of thousands of processes every day we do consciously or unconsciously. So checking your emails is a process. Procurement is a process. In a corporate setup, when you would like to go to a vacation, you fill a form or you apply from an online system that you want to go to vacation. This is a process. Then we can take this from these very simple processes, and it could be very complex processes like in banking, transactions, like millions of transactions per day. So from very simple to very complex, this is a short summary of business process management.
Yeah. How does it look like when you support companies in making it easier and making it more understandable?
It's a great question. And one of the biggest misperceptions about business process management is that it has to be complex. It has to be complicated. It has to be expensive. And with the technology of low code, let me talk about a little bit of no code, low code movement right now, because I think it will help people to understand how I can or how we can make this business process management easy and accessible especially for the Mittelstand. So this is a German word for small and medium businesses. So with the low-code technology or no-code technology, depending on the technology you use, by only drag and dropping, you can create your business processes. And if you would like to add some complexity, so a little bit of advanced process management, you get a little bit of coding, so like SQL queries, and you can still run a very high-level process in a very short amount of time easily. Because if you have the interest, you can develop yourself. And Microsoft has a good terminology in this topic. This is called citizen developers. So citizen developers are people in the companies that are working in IT or have IT affinity, so that they have a technical background or they want to grow in technical aspect. It's all open, so that they can learn the tools and they can learn the prerequisite of little bit of coding, and they can easily implement the tools. In this point, I can give you the example of websites. If you have created a website in 2000s, I had one.
Yeah, me too.
And this was my very first entrepreneurial experience. I can tell this story later on. But you need to have at least HTML knowledge.
Yeah.
And if you want to go advanced, PHP, ASP, GGI, and some of these technologies are not used anymore, some of them still, but you have to spend a lot of time and a lot of either money or resources to build a website. And even this was for a very simple website like mine. But right now in 2021, you just drag and drop, and then because the tools are already embedded with the codes, this is called low code or no code, then you don't need to have a technical background, but you can still create smooth, very well designed websites. So this is and this analogy might help our audience to understand how we can help businesses to make their BPM, so business process management, easy.
Yeah. And that's a good example, because I have built all my websites in one of these platforms where you just drag and drop, because I like you did, like I have had a website in a WordPress where I needed to code, and where it just looked ugly. And I didn't want to spend too much time in learning all the coding myself and going into that.
You still needed the code, and it still looked very ugly.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
exactly.
That's the truth.
Yeah, and now it's so easy. So when I started my business, I was doing my website in one day. It was basically done, and it was not super good, but it was at least something which I was able to present. And then it got better. I invested a little bit, but now I can do a website like in a day if I want to, and it looks really good. I mean, that's no problem at all. And
Yes, because you let the professionals do their work in terms of design and coding in the background, especially, and you are just the one who makes the latest alignments, like a conductor, but the musicians play themselves. So this is a very good example. Yes.
So going into innovation, how do you see the link between business process management and innovation in the field where you are in?
That's a great question, because I think innovation is still missing in the Mittelstand. So that's why I use the term Mittelstand, to keep it a little bit of focused in the German-speaking region. This is basically Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And they are their industry leaders. They are their market leaders in general. They know their industry very well. But they have been in this business for maybe at least a couple of decades, if not 50, 60 years. So, when you rooted that much into the industry, you might lose the perception or the perspective. Actually, that's a better word. Use your perspective to change and adopt, because you were the one who were shaping the industry.
Yeah.
But right now, with the technology growing, you are not the one you are shaping the industry. Let's take typical broadcasting example. Any television channel would think in anywhere in the world, would think that they are the market leader, let's say in their domestic region. And let's take Transylvania, for example, right? There is the Transylvania T1, and they are the market leader, and they know their content, they know their business, they know their audience, everything were working perfectly. One night, Netflix rolled out in Transylvania overnight. And right now they have the biggest competitor in the world. Normally, that could not happen without digitalization, but this is the reality of our day. So, taking this example, the Mittelstand, even though they are great in what they are doing, the technological advancements can put them, and already has started putting them, in a slightly discompetitive position. To overcome this bad position, or like funny position, and to thrive more in the future, they have to adopt their business models, and they have to adopt their business models in a digital way. So it doesn't mean writing emails is digital. It was a digital transformation maybe 20 years ago, but it is way more than that. It is to think how, with help of the technology, I can expand my business. I can create new revenue channels. I can create digital twins of my products. So even I go better with my physical product. So those are different approaches, but I hope that answers your question, Jens.
Yeah. And what I see, I'm back in Germany from living abroad since last summer, and what I see is like Germany's in a lot of things way back when it comes to digitalization. Like I was living in Sweden and Denmark before, just to give one example, and I wasn't going to the bank and taking money out of a cash machine for 3 years. Like 3 years, I was having no cash in my wallet. That's not possible in Germany. It doesn't work. You need to have cash.
Yeah, because some, let's say, restaurants doesn't accept
exactly. Yeah,
and we are not kidding, guys. This is the truth. But that definitely has historic reasons. Germany has lived very big two inflations, like hyperinflations, so that people are very conservative about their finances. That's one of the reasons. And you are a native here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's my observation as a foreigner in this country as well. But that's a very good example. I came to Germany 2016, and very first day, 3rd of September 2016, I went to a mobile dealer to have my SIM card, of course, what you do in your first day in the country that you will live at least a decade. And yeah, the guy was so nice, speaking English, telling me about this, and that, all good, and said, and you have 500 megabytes of internet. I was like, excuse me? Did you say, are you mistaken? Maybe no, it can't be gigabytes, but how is 500 megabytes? Yeah, we have this standard 500 megabytes. I was like, hey, it was 10 years ago. I won't have 500 megabytes. And this also because Germany has an infrastructure already laid out 40, 50 years ago. And it brings the inertia to change to new technologies if you have so old infrastructure. So that's unfortunately the truth. But on the other hand, this is a big opportunity for us to help all German Mittelstand to digitalize and protect their competitiveness.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the biggest opportunity is now jumping over it. If you truly innovate, then jumping over, it's like looking into what is the next step and jumping into that. So it's really taking the German standard and made in Germany ways of thinking to boost that in a completely different way than other countries would be able to do, because the financial power and the knowledge is there. It's just you need to enable it and make it happen.
Exactly, and I would like to add the discipline. So, structured German way of working is very important. Sometimes it's a bit over-structured, but when you can overcome these over-structuredness, so the perfection part, and you can combine the digitalization, so the power of technology with innovation. So innovation is here in the mindset. Then it will boom. It will definitely boom. Because as you said, almost all the prerequisites are there. And then it's change management and applying the growth mindset, applying the innovation mindset to digitalization, where at the end you receive maybe 2, 3, 4 times more results because of these combined powers, existing powers, and new mindset and technologies.
So if we go back, we met in Russia, and we both are triathletes and doing triathlon, both of us still. What do you learn from doing like training for triathlon, especially the long ones, for your business life?
For my business life, okay, I start with my personal life, and then I can tell how it reflects to my business life.
Yeah.
And this podcast is right now the very tangible example. For example, right? It was a cold winter day, and it is really cold in Russia, so
Yes.
No exaggeration here. And I was checking my Strava. This is an app where we track our trainings, and we can also socialize. So socializing for triathletes. So we can even have a podcast for this. Through Strava, see that which other people were there training at the same time with you. And I was like, oh, there is a foreigner, Jens. Oh, let me follow him. And that was exactly probably 2014 or 15. I'm not sure. Probably 15. And the next day, either I texted him or he texted me. I'm not sure. But yeah, so 5 years fast forward, we are here doing the podcast. This is a great example how sport can reflect to your business. But as I said, life is full of coincidences, and it's our business to take advantage or make good relationship with those coincidences. And I believe building long-lasting relationships is one of my personal values. That's why today I am there with Jens. So it started with online conversation, and another coincidence, we had the same coach.
Yeah, true.
Exactly, same coach. So how can you reject this great coincidence? So we started training together, and I will never ever forget. Back then I didn't have a car, so I used a taxi from my home to our meeting point where we trained together. And let's say we meet at 8. 8, like past 5:08, I'm arriving. I'm Turkish, I'm a bit late always. Jens was there already in their clothes. Everything was set up. Once I asked the pump, and even the pump was there ready to be. So I said, okay, that's the German discipline. I liked it. And I started becoming even slightly early to our appointments. I was still late a couple of minutes, but there is always something that you can learn from each other. And that's how it also reflects to your business life, because you learn, okay, then those principles, well, I might use it as well. And even furthermore, then we raced together. We went there. It was a very interesting day. It was 12 degrees water temperature. Cold. It was freezing cold. It was raining in the morning, and we were freezing to death. And then we jumped into water. You have to swim so fast just to warm yourself. It was my best swimming time for that distance. And then it was rainy on the bike. It was 20 kilometers bike. It was a sprint distance. And then 5 kilometers run. Just guess what happened? Sunshine. And it was so warm for that day in Russia. I was like sweating like hell. But what's left behind is great memories. And yeah, long story short, we raced together as well. And our roads crossed once again when he moved back to Germany, to his homeland. And I was like, hey, man, we are still quite far away. I haven't seen you personally for maybe 4.5 years, but we keep in touch for the last year often. And this is also how it reflects to business. So building long-lasting relationships on a personal level. I'm not a big fan of only business relationships, although they are quite possible in some cultures. You have to keep it like this. But I am a big fan of personal relationships. Then the business comes afterwards. Anyways, somehow it comes. And in our case, it was entrepreneurship, it was the mindset, and it was the mindset of a triathlete. Let's imagine that you need to swim 2 kilometers, bike 90, and then run 21. They said half marathon. And Jens, I think 2 times, he even finished a full Ironman, which is take all what I said and multiply it to twice, so double it. So it's amazing. But when you have this mindset, when you are 4 hours in the race, the sun is shining there, 30 degrees, you are sweating your ass off, there is something here that makes you keep going. And you thrive. And you take this mindset, you take this preconditioning of your mind, to lay out more scientifically, and apply it to business. And under turmoil, under difficult conditions, then you start to thrive. You start to not to give up. Even though you fall, you learn to stand up and fight back, or find another challenges or opportunities or workarounds. So because something in your mind says, keep going until you are done. There is no quitting, unless, of course, you have an accident. I had an accident, broke my collarbone. Right now I have 7 screws there, but I'm still training. I was on the bike 4 days after my operation. Of course, indoors.
Yeah, that's typical triathlete.
Says never, ever, 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 ever. I can zoom in a little bit here. Ever. This I learned from Jerry. It was a funny joke.
But if we stick to innovation and to triathlon, so the other days we talked about training and setting things up and so on. So if you look into training for a triathlon and innovating and learning from your mistakes, how do you see that? Do you have any good experiences, bad experiences you can share?
Yes, learning from the mistakes is actually it's crucial for all aspects of our lives. But let's take the triathlon example. And I said I broke my collarbone because I fell during a race in Allgäu on the bike course. Because I was literally thinking something else. I had a problem, and I was contemplating and probably overthinking of this problem prior to the race. And on race day, I said, no, I'm good. I will perform today. And I was actually quite fit physically. I was aiming for top 10% on my age group. But obviously, I couldn't fool myself. So in somewhere here, I was not concentrated on the race.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally fell and broke my collarbone, had to quit the race. I hate quitting. So I had to quit the race because they took me on an ambulance to hospital. I couldn't race on the ambulance. This is not allowed.
That's not allowed.
I had to quit. And that gave me like an euphoria. That was my renaissance. I was like, please do not do it again. So if you are not focused, don't race. Mm-hmm. Or if you think you have a problem, first solve the problem and then do the race or do the execution in this case. So learning from mistakes is very important, as you said, and this is a bad way how I learned from that mistake. And innovating is in the domain of sports, is always trying new things. At the same time, you are listening to your body.
Yeah.
So just don't try new things for the sake of trying when your body says no. Then you can injure yourself. But in a good way, I had a season of very low intensity training. Of course, I did some intervals, so some push to the body, but definitely nowhere near taking to its limits. Definitely nowhere. But I stretched out the durations. So it was a little longer every day, but the intensity kept very low. And then that season, actually, I ran one of my best races. So this is learning by good example. And I was third in my age group in a half distance race, Challenge Turku in Finland. And that's why I was qualified to the World Championships of Challenge Triathlon in Šamor in Slovakia. So I'm sure if I didn't try this new strategy of low intensity but longer trainings incorporated into my regime, I wouldn't be able to perform that day, and I couldn't be the third in a race that thousands of people were racing. Yeah. So this is a good example, and sometimes it sounds contradictory, right? So you think, oh, you train easier. No, you are not going to perform. And I will say, you. That's not the case all the time. You never know unless you try. And that's where a bit of innovation is included.
Yeah, and I think that's as well a good learning from a business perspective. Trying things in a different way, maybe not the mainstream way, which might catapult you into another position and into something going forward. I would love to go towards your podcast. So, what is your podcast about? How did you get the idea in starting your podcast?
That was also innovating for me. I'm not used to being in front of a camera. I did engineering, digitalization, but this is something totally different. And we are not from that generation. I am 35 years old right now. And so this was something out of my comfort zone. But I call myself like a Swiss knife. I have many functionalities, but I am not sharp as a kitchen knife. But I can open wine, if you know what I mean.
That's good. And
beer. Beer is all. Beer is no problem. You can open. But when do you need the Swiss knife? Only when you are out of your comfort zone. When you are in the nature. When you are camping. When you are, I don't know, going for an adventure. So that's my nature. That's where I want to be, out of my comfort zone. And coming back to your question, I thought, no, I should do something different. I can write great emails because I'm also, what I studied is business development. I know this, but let me do what I know in a different way. And my first couple of videos sucked, and they are still sucking, but they are sucking in a better way.
That's just how it is.
Yeah, it is how it is. And you never know unless you do. And in Russian, they have this saying that "Повторение мать учения," and in German, it's "Übung macht den Meister." Yeah. And this is in English, repetition makes the master. So unless you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat again, you will never ever know. So I thought, okay, I'm going to create a podcast, and I need to somehow involve other people because their expertise is way more valid. My 2 cents in the podcast is my observations as a foreigner in the German or German-speaking Mittelstand. But when I invite experts, they know Mittelstand very well, but then our observations collide or can contribute to each other. So the end result is a valuable conversation for the audience. Yeah. And who is the audience? It's the digitalization enthusiasts. And it's the Mittelstand owners, Mittelstand managers, CDOs, CTOs, so chief digital officers, chief technology officers. So anyone who is interested in technology, especially in the domain of Mittelstand. So small and medium businesses.
So if you talk to your guests, like give an example of who was on your show, who was on your podcast.
Definitely. I interview experts from the topic, but as I wanted to keep it as diverse as possible, for example, we had Daniela Fink. She's from Köln and she's a coach, leadership coach. She works with enterprises, but also with Mittelstand, so small and medium enterprise. So this is a very diverse experience contributing how, for example, new work can be relevant for Mittelstand. Let's assume that you are a Mittelstand and you are producing goods for automotive industry. So which means your workers, your employees have to come to the factory to produce. Otherwise, you cannot. But how a concept, an innovative concept like new work can be applied to Mittelstand where their employees have to be physically there. So, for example, she gave great insights. I also interviewed a lot of people from the technology partners. I interviewed Neil Thompson. He's international channel manager in Netology, a low-code BPM provider. He gave his insights about how not complex BPM should be, how people complicate things, and how we can easily focus on the implementation instead of complication. So those are generally my guests. And for example, I had Anton Kram. He is the CEO of Valial Solution, a digitalization company in Bayern. And as you know, in Bayern, they have the one of the cores of Mittelstand in Germany. And he shared his experiences, how the de facto situation is, how technology can help with tangible examples. Or I had Alexander Steiner for robotic process automation. So that's a bit topic from BPM, but it's a very beneficial technology when used in the good direction. I had Lukas Zekel from Bitroad. They do digital consultancy, and he talked about digital purpose. So you are a coach. What do you start with? Purpose. So it's the same for the digitalization. He talked about digital purpose, and those variety of topics I always try to keep is, I believe, what beneficial for my audience.
So if we close the podcast part and with the question around, like, imagine you could do a podcast episode that would be listened to all over the world, what would be a topic you would love to talk about?
That would be definitely BPM. Doesn't have to be complex. BPM is easy. Please start, and this is the way you can start with. So that would be like a more tangible example. Because coming to Mittelstand, before we close to the podcast part, Mittelstand actually don't care about the technology itself. And if I were them, I wouldn't even give a single penny about the technology itself. But they care about the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So our duty is to give them examples, tangible examples of outcomes, how this might increase their efficiency or decrease their production times or backlogs or whatever the way their pain points are solved. So in my podcast, overall goal is to help them understand how in tangible ways the technology can help the Mittelstand.
Yeah, that's great, and I can highly recommend to listen to it. It's very interesting, specifically from a German context, listening to experts around this theme in Germany, but not just Germany. So it's interesting for everyone because it's in English.
That's why I make it in English, definitely. Thank you, Jens. And because the same problems, maybe not 100% same, but 80, 90% same problems have the whole SMEs, small and medium businesses in Europe, and I would say even in the world, because we speak people from South Africa, from Jamaica, from Singapore, from India, and more or less they come to the same root cause analysis. So yes, I keep my focus on the German market, German-speaking market, but I do it in English because that's also a challenge for the Mittelstand. They should bit of internationalize themselves. So that's where that's why I choose the name The Digital in English and Mittelstand in German. So to combine this Denglish way.
Yeah, I love that. So getting towards an end now. So where do you think you will be in a year from now?
I'll be in Germany, in Berlin, living with my girlfriend. Those are the things that are, yes, I know. And I will definitely build my business and my podcast, but continuously iterating. So I am an engineer, I'm a fan of iteration, and that's why I love innovation. Sits on the, let's say, basis of our engineering principles. You never know unless you try, and you don't try once, you try 1,000 times, 10,000 times, whatever it takes to get this precision that you want. And you never get this because you always want better. This is also coming from sports. Maybe before we close, one more example. In triathlon, you figure not only your mind's boundaries, not only your body's boundaries, but boundaries of yourself as a human being. So you always say, okay, today I ran 15 minutes. Tomorrow I want to run 16 minutes. Or I ran 3 kilometers in 15 minutes. Right now I want to run 3.4 kilometers in 15 minutes. So you always have this stretching. You always have these Verbesserung in German, so improvement. Improvement. And taking this, applying to business, what's our first principle? Always better, faster, cheaper. So always improving in one of those terms And that also comes for me, at least from the sports.
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you keep yourself like informed? What are the things you're reading, listening to, watching for people to get into your mindset? Anything you could share?
Yes, I watch Jens Heitland show.
Of course. I haven't paid him for that.
Yeah, no, I am on my free will confessing that I watch Jens Heitland show because innovation is a very interesting topic for me. I am trying to read every day. It could be 2 pages, it could be 3 pages, but it's the same mindset. Never give up. So sometimes literally I read 1 page and I was like, oh, I'm falling asleep. Just put it down and fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I read that single page. So I read a lot about entrepreneurship. I read a lot literature, especially in the night, because it's good. I love Russian literature, classical literature, but also as we train like approximately 10 to 12 hours per week, and let's say 40 to 50% of them is on the bike, and we do indoor bike sessions, which means I have 5 to 6 hours of time that I can consume content. Therefore, I watch a lot of valuable content for my business, for personal development, for my growth mindset, and definitely that is already embedded the innovation in it, because I am personally trying to be out of my comfort zone 80% of my time, and the remaining 20% I read or consume things how I can be out of my comfort zone. So it's like push towards the out of your comfort zone. But I definitely also would like to chill some, and being in competitive sports for the last 5 years, and then the corona came, we couldn't swim in the swimming pools, we couldn't train in teams. I say, okay, I take this year as an opportunity for myself to even further develop myself, improve my German, because you never learn German till the end. You still have thousands of different words that you hear once, but like, I want to know this word as well. So yeah, that's what I still do. I also learn languages. I love learning languages. I was 27 when I was in Russia, and I said, okay, I only speak 2 languages and I want to learn Russian. And I somehow did it. I still can sustain a fluent conversation in Russian. But I was a bit complaining. Can you learn a language when you are 27?
Of course
that's
you
so
can.
difficult.
Yeah.
But guess what happened? I moved to Germany. I'm 31 years old. Guess what I'm doing? Learning German. I will never complain again about my age doing something new. And I applied this mindset to German. And even though I'm a 4.5 years here, I actually do my business in German. So that's what I also can share.
Yeah. Cool. So where can people find you? How can people connect to you?
Yeah, definitely they can find my podcast. It's called in YouTube, the Digital Mittelstand. And I am quite active in LinkedIn. It's Can Adiguzel. Maybe you can find.
I will put the link into the show notes for both. Yeah.
But please don't hesitate to contact with me. As I said, I am a big fan of building long-lasting personal relationships, and that will anyways pay in the long term in a good way, as we are doing it right now with Jens.
Yes. Cool. Thank you very much for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking with you, Jens. Thank you, and have a great day afterwards.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Take me to another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magic magical land, magical land. To another place where the fairy tales don't end. Magical,